So everyone, or at least I, have been wondering what percentage of salt is there in the Dead Sea? Because it's so salty, nothing visible to the eye lives there. So that is to say, there are microscopic organisms, but nothing like a fish or algae or anything like that. So I looked it up, and I'll get to that in a second. The salinity of normal water is pretty much close to zero. The reason I'm wondering is, say humans are close to the same weight as water, the same density per volume as water. Salty water is heavier than non-salty water, and so I've got a piece of meat here, and I'm going to keep increasing the salinity of this tap water to see how well that floats. Okay, so this is just normal tap water, piece of meat. Oh, just fell to the bottom. You see? Fell straight to the bottom. I'll do that again. And I mean, this thing just dropped. Boom, just falls right in. Okay. Falls right to the bottom. Okay. Now, seawater, as in just your oceans, are about 3.5% salinity. So that means for those 200 grams of water, 200 milliliters of water, and 1 liter of water is pretty much exactly a kilogram. So yeah, 200 ml of water is 200 grams of water. So we need 3.5%, which is 7 grams. 7 grams of water, where this is where my super duper accurate scale comes handy. So we need 7 grams. .5 and add a pinch of salt. There you go, 3.5% salinity. I will have to stir this though. I will need my resident chemical engineer to pass me a teaspoon. Now, dissolved, which means that that water now is, when I lick that water, it should be roughly the saltiness of the beach water. Yep, terrible. Now, let's see how well this meat floats and or sinks in this here water. Still sinks, but much slower. I'll zoom that in. I believe, I don't know, it just seems like that sinks slower, but I'll have to review that video. So that's 3.5% salinity. The Dead Sea, however, being so incredibly salty, will have a lot more salt in it, which will make the water much heavier. The solution, that is, of salt and water. I looked it up, and it's like 33.7% salt, which is so much more. It's like 10 times more salt than I just put in. So let's do that now. I just added 7, and I need to add in 67.4. So I need another 60.4 grams, right? Let's do that. This is serious business, okay? It's science. The water seems to have beef with the salt. You get it? Because that's a piece of beef. It doesn't want to dissolve so easily, so I'm going to have to spend some considerable time trying to get this salt to melt away in there, because this is like saturated heaps. By the way, there's like, the more you put in, the harder it gets to dissolve the rest. Seriously, I've been mixing this thing for like 5-10 minutes or something, and it's just not dissolving. I'll do it, yeah. I'll do it, but whoa. Okay, I think it's safe to assume that after about 15-20 minutes of mixing, I will never ever dissolve all of it. I mean, look, I might in another hour or so, but I'm just not going to do that. So let's just say that 95% of that salt is dissolved. So let's just say it's at like 30% salinity or something like that. Okay, let's see what happens when I put that chunk of beef in this super salty water. Oh, wait, first, I should probably taste it. I probably shouldn't, judging by my fiance's face. And let's just go to the bit where I drop it in. Oh, floating. There you go.
Yay!
That's just, yep, that's really floating. Let me just shut up my unscientific dad. Dad, shut up. You're not being very scientific. Yeah, so there you go. Dad, check this out. Have you been to the Dead Sea? Have you? Dad?
No.
No? Okay, well if you had, this is how you would float, even though you're very heavy. Check it out. I should probably stop playing with this piece of meat now. So, if you went swimming in the Dead Sea, now if you thought that was science, that was quasi-scientific, because I didn't have controls to some extent, which means I didn't have much reference to, like, okay, if I just put the meat in the super saturated salty water and just said, look at this, it floats, therefore salty water makes meat float, that wouldn't be very scientific because I didn't have a reference to that. But I did the tap water and I did the 3.5% water. So there were, you know, you could reference it back to something and compare. This is a good time to mention that I should have had some way to measure how quickly the meat sinks, or how much there were many extraneous variables there, one of which my fiance here points out, and I just, hi, she's a chemist, and I actually know this, but she just keeps going, temperature, temperature, temperature. I'm like, yeah, I know, give me a break, I'll do it at the end. The best way to have done this would have been to have 3 bits of water, you know, one just tap water, one say like seawater salinity, and one Dead Sea salinity, and have them all 3 at the same temperature. Also, I should have checked what temperature the Dead Sea is at, because I don't know, it's probably warm. because it's warmer around there. My water would have been like 15 or 20 degrees max, whereas the sea might be like 30 or something, I don't know. So I could have done that too. I could have done a fourth glass, one at room temperature water, one at actual ocean water. What was it? What did you say about the spoon? Sanya? Hey, what did you say about the spoon?
You need a glass stick.
Yeah. I got some glass. I actually do have glass sticks for stirring things, because I do like being scientific, but I just couldn't be bothered. This is just a silly little thing. I didn't write anything down. I didn't have any particular replicatable method written up that others can follow and try and get the same results or prove me wrong. Likewise. So, this was just a silly little thing, but if I was going to do it correctly, then I would have done a whole lot of other steps which would just make it more complicated. But just for a bit of fun, there you go. That really that was fun. I mean, I knew what the result was going to be. I didn't know. I had a hypothesis. There you go. Which would have been like, you'd have to stay at a whole bunch of like different temperatures and numbers and things. But simple hypothesis, meat is roughly the same, density as water, so it would have been somewhere around about, I thought it would be like just about to float, and I thought the second, the middle bunch with the 3.5%, I thought that was actually going to float. But having almost drowned in the ocean myself once, I should have known better. That meat wasn't going to float, it was going to drown without my help. So lucky I was there to save it. But the last batch, I thought for sure that was just going to float right at the top, which it did, so that was great. Well, I hope I've encouraged you to be more curious and be, when you find things out, be a bit more systematic. Sometimes people people would just test the end one and say, oh, I've proven something. You never prove anything in science. You just kind of support your theory, and then you can gather up so much support that it's almost fact. But you don't prove anything, and also you need to be able to reference that to something. You need control groups and so forth. So be systematic in your questions, but definitely ask questions of the world regardless of how silly you think they are, because it's fun. It's what babies do, and they have a lot of fun. So harness that little baby child inside you and go and have fun. Also, my fiance informs me the temperature of the Dead Sea goes up to 37 degrees. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I have also quasi-scientific evidence that my dad is a douchebag, but I don't have a control. I didn't have another dad there to not act like a douchebag in response, and then I could compare it and see whether he is or is not one. So maybe you should do this at home and try and replicate the results. That's what science is about.